Wanted to get in a little bit of news that broke a couple of weeks ago. There was some outcry on social media, especially about horses who have been exported to Puerto Rico, ending up in pretty bad shape. And on that note, I want to shout out Caribbean Thoroughbred Aftercare, who do a great job. I remember them doing really yeoman's work with the horses when they had the hurricanes in Puerto Rico. But in a larger sense, it just seems like the horse care is not up to par in Puerto Rico, and a lot of horses that get cast off from America end up in really bad shape. Sometimes end up going to kill pens or just in terrible physical shape. So a lot of them come from Gulfstream Park, which would make sense because proximity wise, Gulfstream is the closest major racetrack to Puerto Rico. So there was a little bit of pressure on First Racing and Gulfstream Park to do something about it. And I'm just going to read you a little bit from this press release that First Racing put out recently. It says, it was addressed to Gulfstream Park's trainers and owners. It says, recently, First and Gulfstream Park were contacted by people concerned about horses who last raced at Gulfstream, subsequently sold for racing in Puerto Rico. There are significant concerns with aftercare for thoroughbred racehorses once they finish racing in Puerto Rico. And he said, we share the concerns of those individuals. In the past, Gulfstream and First Racing paid to ship some horses back to aftercare programs in the continental United States. However, it's much better for horse welfare and more effective for all of us to prevent horses from being sent to Puerto Rico, particularly those who no longer belong in racing due to injury, age, or poor performance. Going forward, the trainer and owner of record for any horse that last races at Gulfstream Park will be responsible for the cost of shipping a horse back to the United States. If it is shipped to Puerto Rico, they're going to review the number of horses that end up there from trainers and owners who have horses at Gulfstream Park on an annual basis. Even if those horses do not end up coming back to the United States, Gulfstream and First Racing reserves the right to mandate that a trainer and or owner make a donation for each horse to a TAA-accredited aftercare program. Moreover, trainers and owners with injured or infirm horses that end up in Puerto Rico may be subject to fines and loss of stalls at First Racing facilities. That last part, to me, is the only thing in there that really has any teeth. If you're going to start fining and taking stalls away from people who are responsible for horses that end up in terrible spots in Puerto Rico, then you might have a little bit of something. The other stuff is just, it's kind of nice, broad goals. But John, you know a little bit more about owning horses and about the post-racing career situations of horses. What's your reaction to this?
Well, Joe, let me start off by again complimenting the fact that a sector of the industry is trying to address a big problem, and it's a big problem not only for the horses and for their well-being, but let's call it spade a spade. It's also a terrible PR look for the industry to have horses in a different country that are starving, that are coming directly from one of the major racetracks in our industry. And again, I sincerely am happy that that First and Gulfstream are trying to get out and have some kind of a plan and a schedule for this. That being said, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. They don't have the teeth or the ability to mandate that owners and trainers need to make donations, to accredited aftercare if they send a horse to Puerto Rico and the horse subsequently is in a bad place. Nor do they have the ability to fine owners or trainers in accordance with their rules and conditions. I looked through the stall. The stall rental agreement, which is really the primary legal contract that trainers and therefore by proxy owners have with Gulfstream Park. And there's no fine schedule that has to do with anything of horses going off premises. They just don't have the legal authority to do it. So for them to be able to say, we are going to reserve the right to mandate that you make a donation is bullshit, because they don't have, they can reserve the right, but they don't have the authority to do it. Unfortunately, they don't have the authority to do it. It's just not something that they can do. And to say that if somebody sends a horse to Puerto Rico and they may be subject to fines and loss of stalls, okay, I'm going to call a bluff. They had 600 plus empty stalls during the championship meet. The best 4 months of racing at Gulfstream, and they had over 600 stalls that were empty. And they're scrambling to make 8 races a day to go. Are you going to honestly tell me that you're going to go to owners and say, or trainers and say, we're not going to recognize this entry because you sent a horse to Puerto Rico? It's just, realistically, it's not going to happen. In a perfect world, I would love for it to happen, but in real world, it's not the case. Now, Joe, you know me very well, and you know that I hate to talk about when somebody proposes an idea and it's not the right idea without coming up with some other kind of a solution. Well, I know that the head of the head of the Horsemen's Association from Florida and a veterinarian who is employed on Gulfstream's grounds and one of the higher ups from racing in Puerto Rico actually had multiple conversations and even an on-site meeting in the beginning of March. And they came up with a very simple answer and plan to deal with the issue of having horses come from America to Puerto Rico and not be able to race there. Because again, from Puerto Rico's standpoint, they don't want to buy bad horses. They don't want to buy horses that are at the end of their careers and have to force them to run. It's not a good investment for them either. So the three groups came together and actually came up with a really simple answer. And the really simple answer that they promoted to Gulfstream was, let's have a vet exam, a pre-sale vet exam that says that the horse is suitable for racing. It costs a couple $100 to have a vet do that. And it takes all of the liability off of Gulfstream, all the liability off the selling owner and trainer, as far as, are they selling a sound horse to a racing operation in Puerto Rico? So from a liability standpoint, they lose the liability, which is great. From a cost standpoint, it costs them innumerably less money to have a veterinarian, a qualified veterinarian, come in and say, this horse is suitable for racing or not suitable for racing. And Joe, let's just say the horse is not suitable for racing. Well, at that point, Gulfstream Park specifically has a wonderful person in charge of on-site aftercare coordinations in Raina Gunderson. She's on call there at the racetrack almost 24/7. She does a wonderful job. All they do at that point, if a horse is unsound or not suitable for racing, is retire its papers, which it talks about in the press release. Jockey Club already has the ability for you as an owner to go online, check the box that says the horse is going to be retired, and therefore the horse is ineligible to race anywhere in the United States, including Puerto Rico. So that would solve the problem right there. It would be a win-win-win, and these horses wouldn't even have to go to Puerto Rico and have these toothless, potential penalties that Gulfstream is promoting that say that we have the right to be able to decide if we're going to do this to you. It alleviates all the problems. Now, why didn't that get done? Well, I think personally, because it's not as flashy as being able to say, we're going to fine you and we're not going to let you have it. It's just not sexy enough. But does it solve the problem? I think it solves the problem very easily. And that's what I would have liked to have seen, because, again, representatives from the Florida Horsemen, veterinarians, and racing at Puerto Rico all agreed to do this.
Yeah, solid solution. That's great. I just want to. I agree with you in principle. I think, Gulfstream is kind of in a bind here because that's, the main source of horses for Puerto Rico.
Sure.
I don't think Gulfstream loves the situation. I just think, they're kind of up between a rock and a hard place. Again, like with so many other fucking things in this business, like just do right by the horse.
Right.
Like I'm so tired of having to find these Rube Goldberg machine solutions to try to get around people not doing the right thing by the horses. Like that's just, it's exhausting, honestly, how many people will not do right by the horse. And that's honestly one of the reasons I love working for West Point is we do the right thing by the horses when they're done retiring. It should be the case across the board, man. Like, and I do think we're making a lot of progress on that, but just it's tiring.
Right.
How many people just do not give two shits about what happens to the horse after they have outlived their usefulness to them. So
right.
that's I think is a fundamental problem that there's just still fewer, but still too many people in this business who aren't in it for the right reasons. And I just want to give one more pop to the Caribbean Thoroughbred Aftercare. CTAHorse.com is the website. You can adopt through there. You can donate. You can sponsor them. And it's an uphill battle considering what happens and what we're learning more and more about what happens to horses that are in Puerto Rico. So shout out to them. And shout out to, like John said, to the people who are on Twitter and on social media bringing attention to this, because, like I'm saying, that goes with what I'm saying, that there are a lot of people who are banking on nobody's eyes being on these horses because they're not in the headlines. And thankfully, I think we have enough people in this industry who aren't stakeholders necessarily who have been on this watch.
Right. No question about it. And Joe, just if I can throw one thing out there, Raina Gunderson's phone number, it's in the condition book, but it's worth putting out there. If you have a question about on-site aftercare, she's an on-site aftercare coordinator at Gulfstream, 954-682-1294. Raina Gunderson, I've spoken to her. She comes to meetings. She gives us reports for the Florida Horsemen, and just is such a wonderful individual and really cares about these horses. And there's not a higher compliment I can give her than just saying that she is a tremendous individual.